Hello, everyone. This is What We Think is Dope. I'm here with Elie Honig today.
Is it what we think is dope or who we think is
What
dope?
we think is dope. Okay,
Am I
yeah.
one of the whats?
Yeah, you are one of the whats for sure. To me, Elie Honig is my professor from Rutgers University. To the masses, he's CNN senior legal analyst. He's also the author of national bestseller Hatchet Man, podcast host of Up Against the Mob. He's a former prosecutor at the Southern District of New York. Have I missed anything?
A couple things, but that's good. Listen, most importantly, you were one of my students, one of my greats, one of my best students,
Let's
I will
go.
say, and earned an A. I can say this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Earned an
yeah,
A
yeah.
in my class.
Both of them.
Hard-earned A, did a really interesting paper, which ended up being very timely.
Yeah, passed.
On
That's
when rap lyrics can and should be used in criminal prosecutions, and then a couple days later, there's a big story about it, so you're ahead of the news.
Yeah.
And this is your reward. You made it through my class, and so now you get me as a podcast guest.
Let's go. I'm very
All right.
happy. Thank you for all of that, the kind words.
Yeah.
So my first question was going to be, given your background with CNN and media, what is your Mount Rushmore of journalists? Because you've worked with a lot of greats, and you've also came up watching a lot of
That's
greats.
a great question. So 4, right?
Yeah,
Mount
4.
Rushmore?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start with Christiane Amanpour, who you all may be a little young. She's still, out there with CNN virtually every day. She did a couple great pieces this week. But Christiane Amanpour really became well known during the first Iraq War.
Okay.
When I was in high school and college. She is fearless. She's based overseas. She's I think she's based in London now, and she's sort of this legend in the field. She can get any person to speak with her. She's fair and tough and tells stories really, really well. She just got an interview this week with one of the leaders of, I think it was Al Qaeda.
Oh my God.
First person ever he spoke with was her. And she's remarkable. I've had the privilege of being on her show a handful of times. She really supported the documentary piece that I did on the
the
Holocaust Eichmann trial. So she's one of the 4 for sure. I'm going to put Clarissa Ward on there as well, who I've actually not met. I've met almost everybody at CNN. She's not. If I meet her, I'll be excited.
You gotta make it happen.
She's one of our war correspondents. If you've been following the Ukraine war, I mean, she speaks 5 languages. I don't know if it's 5, but you'll see her doing these live shots in English. She's an English speaker, and then immediately just right into Russian and speaking with people. And she goes right into the heart of war zones, and she's fearless and courageous and remarkable at what she does. So I have 2 more spots left. Well, Wolf Blitzer has to get one, as just because he's Wolf Blitzer, the greatest of all time. And I will say this about Wolf. My kids call him Uncle Wolf, as I told him last night, which he loved, not on air. He is a better person even than you would think. You would think he's a great person, and he's better than that. He is a prince of a human. He is caring and warm and funny as hell. He's always got a good joke, a good line. And he really goes out of his way to help the younger people at CNN. And of course, he's a legend for a reason. And then my 4th spot, I'll go with Don Lemon.
Okay.
Again, a little bit biased because I'm a regular on his show and he's a friend, but Don is really great at telling stories and conveying his own experiences and finding the heart in any story and pulling it out of people. And he's just as good or even better when he's talking to. Last night he had on the cashier from the supermarket in Buffalo where the horrible shooting happened. And he's just as comfortable, if not more, talking to a normal person like that as he is to some, Nobel Prize winning, scholar or what have you, or a head of state. So he really does a great job, I think, of bringing his heart into his work.
That's amazing, Mount Rushmore. I'm gonna look into some of those people too.
How do you not know them all? Come on.
I know 2 out of the 4, so I gotta look at
I want to
those
ask
too.
which ones. You're supposed to act like you should go. Yeah.
Okay. We'll cut to that part.
No editing.
No, I like doing one take.
Keeping this as is.
With Hatchet Man being a national bestseller, what are 3 books you think everyone should read in their lifetime?
Okay, well, you know what one of them is going to be. The book that I had you read in class, Devil in the Grove.
Phenomenal.
Which is about Thurgood Marshall, but not the justice. Well, yes, the same person, but not the career, part of his career that everybody knows about on the Supreme Court as the first African American Supreme Court justice. But before that, what got him to that point, which was his career as this incredibly brave defense lawyer. He'd go into the Deep South in the 40s and 50s, and as we read about in our book, defend these people who were wrongly accused and often targeted for unjust prosecutions, often lynched. Thurgood Marshall himself, you remember from the book,
Yeah,
was very nearly lynched more than once.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's a remarkable story of courage and our system at its work. So he's. The question was what?
What are 3 books?
Oh, 3 books. Yes.
So Devil in the Grove.
So
sure.
Devil in the Grove for sure. Do they have to be sort of educational?
No,
law-based?
I'm
reading
anything
a
someone's
great
read.
book right now about called The Boys of Summer, which is probably the most famous or among the most famous books about baseball ever. It's about the Brooklyn Dodgers of the 1950s, written by Roger Kahn, who covered them at the time. He's passed away. It's a beautiful book. It brings you into Brooklyn, the real world of Brooklyn in the 1950s, and it's about these teams. Jackie Robinson being the most famous player, but Duke Snyder and Roy Campanella and Pee Wee Reese. If you're a baseball guy like I am, all those guys, of course, predated me, but I'm interested in baseball history.
Sean wants to coach.
Oh, yeah? Okay, well, you know who these guys are. And it's a fascinating look at these people, these people as people, because Jackie Robinson, for example, has become this mythical being we sort of look at through a gauzy light.
Yeah.
But he brings out the human. He obviously, Kahn has deep reverence for Jackie Robinson, but he also brings out the human side of him. I mean, there's one passage where Kahn is close enough to the field where he says Jackie Robinson ruthlessly rode the umpires. He never shut up towards the umpires. Mm-hmm. And so he just writes down everything Jackie Robinson says during one at bat to the ump, and he says, "Come on, ump, that's stupid, you suck." And it just makes him human.
Yeah.
And then what he does that's really remarkable is he goes and he finds these guys 20 years after their careers in the early 70s, and it's sad and it's beautiful, and you see these guys who are like my age now, right? I'm 47, so they're maybe 52, and they're 15 years past this glorious time they had, and some of them are miserable, and some of them are okay, and it's an interesting portrait of aging, I guess I would say. Third, God, there's so many great books. I'll try to think of a different one that I really enjoyed. I love oral histories. There's a great oral history. It's not quite appropriate for your class, not because you can't handle it, but just subject matter wise. It's called The Only Plane in the Sky. It's by a friend of mine, another CNN commentator, Garrett Graff, who's this brilliant historian. And it is the best retelling of 9/11. He talks to family members of people who were killed. He talks to cops and firefighters who were in the buildings. He talks to security officials, and he weaves together this I was older. You're not older, but I'm old enough to. I was about your age when 9/11 happened, a little older, and but this to me is one of the most poignant tellings of it. There's other great oral histories. I love the oral histories like behind the scenes of SNL is a good one. There's Saturday Night Live. Yeah. There's a great one of MTV, the oral history of MTV. Yeah. I think it's the same author. I forget the name. Which I just love that stuff. I'll go in for an oral history.
I like oral history a lot too.
Yeah.
I could say Devil in the Grove, phenomenal, changed my perspective on society and gave me a lot of clarity for actions I want to take in my life as well.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Then, so I want to have a little fun with it. This question's a little out there. You're on an island. You get one unlimited food buffet of it. You get one podcaster's catalog, one artist's discography, and one director's filmography.
Whoa.
What's your island situation?
So wait, I have to eat this one food the whole time?
Yeah, breakfast, lunch, dinner.
I can't eat anything else?
Nothing else. Yeah, the island will only give you this. You get 4 wishes when you get there.
But I only get one food.
One food, that's it.
Well, I have to think practically here. Like, what am I not going to die? I mean, my thought was eggs because they give you protein. Do I have cooking capacity?
No cooking. I mean, you could say like
can
scrambled,
I start a fire
sunny side
and
up.
like get a
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, but I feel like I would die of scurvy. So, can I pick leaves off the I'm fighting your hypothetical. I don't want to fight your hypothetical.
You have a chef that'll give you one item, unlimited
Well,
buffet.
I don't want to die of scurvy, so...
It could be an entree if you want to, with little sides.
Okay.
Yeah, we can have sides. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with an omelet.
Okay.
Spinach, mushroom, and cheddar omelet.
Okay,
And I would just
that's
eat that 3 times a day,
Alright.
which I make a pretty good one.
Eggs or egg whites?
You know, I am a cook.
You are?
I'm
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
chef, but I cook like,
I've-
virtually every night for my family.
When you were teaching us, you had I don't know if that's souvlaki. You were making that for the first time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with the omelet.
Okay.
What was the second one?
Podcast catalog.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It can be your own if you want.
No way. I'm a big. I mean, I would probably say again a Homer pick, but Pre Barara, who's my friend and I work with at Cafe and Vox, just because you get such an interesting variety of guests He will have a
He had Ben
comedian.
Stiller, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben Stiller. I was Mike Birbiglia. Comedians like that. But then he has these well-known public figures, whether it's members of Congress or cabinet secretaries. But then he'll have interesting people that you haven't heard of. And sometimes I'll text them and go, gosh, when I saw today's podcast title, I thought, oh, God. But it ended up being fascinating.
Yeah.
He gets interesting people who are subject matter experts. So I'm going to go with Preetz, but I do want to put in I am a huge fan of my runner-up. I know I'm cheating a little bit.
No, that's fine.
There is a great podcast called 60 Essential. I'm getting the title wrong. 60 Essential Songs to Understand the 90s.
Okay.
Or 60 songs that explain the 90s. That's what it's by a guy named Rob Harvilla, who I just discovered. I don't even know how. I must have heard something about it. And he takes each episode, he's actually beyond 60 now, one song from the 90s.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. He's such a great writer. I'm hosting SiriusXM next week. I want to get him on. He takes each song and he writes a 30-minute essay about it, 20-minute essay about it, and it's funny and it's hilarious. And some of the songs I already loved. Again, I was 90s for me, it was like now for you.
Yeah.
And some of them I hated, and when I saw that was the episode, I went, "Oh no!" And then I listened, and I said, you know what? I think I like this song now.
When you hear the story behind it, because Dua Lipa, she has a Behind the Record on Netflix. If you ever get time,
it's like that.
It's phenomenal. Seeing how all the aspects.
So I love that one. Okay, what was next?
You have a artist discography, so we're still on music.
Oh boy.
It could be a band too.
Yeah. The obvious answer is Springsteen because he's Jersey and I love him and he has a deep discography. So I think I'll go with him. I mean, look, sometimes the obvious answer is the right answer.
Yeah.
Bruce is the right answer here.
For me, it's Drake or Michael Jackson, so it's the same generational difference.
Okay, so does Drake have enough stuff though?
Oh yeah, Drake has so many projects. He stopped naming them albums or mixtapes.
Okay.
He released a playlist. The only artist that released a playlist.
What do you mean by that?
So like he didn't want to release an album or a mixtape, so he said, "Here's a bunch of songs I made for a soundtrack to your life." So it's like a gym playlist he made for you.
Oh.
Yeah. Genius marketing.
I like him. I decide if I like celebrities that I don't know, like modern celebrities. I decide if I like them based on how good they are on Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
And he was brilliant. Like he could have been in the cast.
Yeah.
So I like him. He seems like a cool guy. And I think isn't he part Jewish, part black, and Canadian?
Yeah.
So that's
and his dad's from Memphis. It's like crazy.
Yeah, and he's an NBA fan. He's a big Raptors fan. Joel Embiid.
He's actually trying to.
Joel Embiid flicked him off.
Yeah.
At the Sixers.
You're a big Sixers fan. Yeah.
But I like Drake. I don't love his music, but I think he's cool.
Okay. I'll send you a playlist.
Okay. All right. The only one I know is my kids will die. I won't. But the one about Kiki. Kiki.
Oh yeah.
I like that
In
song.
My feelings. Yeah. Okay.
I'm so hip, guys.
What is and this is the last part of the question. You have one filmographer's.
That's a good one. I'm gonna go Rob Reiner.
Okay.
And I have a Rob Reiner story. So Rob Reiner's a director who and an actor. He became known because he played one of the main characters in All in the Family, which was a little before my time, but it's very popular. It's Archie Bunker.
Yeah, my dad's like that.
So in the 70s, and it ended up being sort of way ahead of its time because they dealt with, in comedic fashion, they dealt with issues of race and class, and the Archie Bunker was this hateful racist, and Rob Reiner played this sort of hippie son-in-law who pushed back against it.
Yeah.
But he became this great writer and producer, and he made at least 3 of my all-time favorite movies. He made Spinal Tap, which is, you know this? No, a great,
Definitely
one of the first
watch
mockumentaries. Like he follows this heavy metal band in the 80s, and it's played by the guys from Monty Python, I think. I'm blanking on the name. I should know that. I'm embarrassed that I don't know the names of the actors. But it became this big cult classic, I guess, and then some. Very funny. Highly recommend that. Stand By Me, which is a all-time classic, which my kids love. It's one of the few movies from my era that I showed them that they watch and rewatch and rewatch.
Yeah, phenomenal.
And A Few Good Men.
Tom
Very
Cruise,
good too. Jack Nicholson, and many others. But I mean, he has such a great filmography, and I got to know him a little bit. I actually I was one of several people who filmed a piece about the law when Trump was being investigated early on, and they had a bunch of us go to this studio in New York City, and Rob Reiner was there, and he was very nice. He knew who I was, and was, hey, Ellen, which was surreal. And then you go into the room like this for your setup and to do your part, and Rob Reiner's there. in the room, and I said, "Oh, I didn't realize you'd be directing. It's
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
intimidating." He said, "Oh, stop it, you're fine." But the funny thing was, I had just come from CNN, and so I had my tie, and I was in full suit, and I said, "I never know whether to tuck the tie in, because on the one hand, if you tuck it in, it won't be sticking out the bottom of your jacket, which you never want, but then it sort of sometimes puffs up."
Yeah, bunches up. Yeah.
And I said, my mom sort of texted me after my last appearance and said, your tie is bunching up, you should tuck it in. And I said, which one do you do? Rob Reiner says to me, "You always listen to your Jewish mom, no matter what." So I said, all right, well, that settles that. So.
I like that.
Yeah. So there you go. Oh, I was going to say, my runner-up, again, I'm cheating, is Linklater, who did Dazed and Confused.
Oh, I love Dazed and Confused.
Yeah,
One of my top 5 movies. I did not know that.
Boyhood, and Everybody Wants Some, and all these great movies.
Yeah,
So,
cult classics
yeah.
for sure. The next question is a little more serious. What is your advice for the next generation that wants to create a balance between career and creativity? Because you had the career with prosecutor, but then you also have these creative outlets with your book and then also podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, all of this was never my design. I mean,
Okay,
I was a prosecutor. I was a real lawyer once.
For
And
sure.
I didn't even intend to do this. I mean, I started teaching at Rutgers 4 years ago now, when I left the AG's office. And this just happened because a friend of mine was doing CNN, or doing various cable shows, and said, "Hey, they need a lot of prosecutors now." It was right in the heart of the Mueller investigation. "Would you want to do this?" I said, "Yeah, I would. That sounds fun." And I did it, and it went well, and they brought me back, and just went from there. So it was never part of the plan. But I guess I would say establish your credentials first, right? Especially if you want to be seen as an expert. Because the reason I'm able to do this and do this well is because I'm a lawyer, and I worked as a full-time prosecutor for 14 years. And so if you see me on air, what I think viewers really like is when I'm able to relate that to my real life experience and say, I've seen this situation, I've been in the huddle, the way Tony Romo does football.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, here's what they're talking about right now behind the scenes. Here's what they're thinking. Here's the strategy. And you can't do that if you just sort of, I think a lot of people will tell you this, if you just start out your career in media or in entertainment. If you want to be seen as an expert, you have to do the work first.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two is do the work, show up. I mean, you have to earn your way. You have to earn your stripes. I think I have a title in that book called "Earn Your Stripes."
Yeah, the first chapter is Earn Your
But
Stripes.
the same goes in any career. Let's take CNN for example. When I started, I was working for free, and I wouldn't always get the most coveted gigs. I would do weekends and sometimes early mornings and sometimes late nights, but I was always willing. I still am. I still will do any time I'm asked unless I have a conflict, like a podcast shoot.
Thanks again.
Don't worry, I was on earlier. I'm not missing anything. But show up, be there. Like, being there is half the battle, and you have to be willing to work for free. You have to be entrepreneurial. You guys are doing this yourselves. Put your stuff out there. It's great now. You have channels to put things out there. And even if you have not, 10,000 viewers right away, you'll build it up. And if you do good work, and it sounds hokey, but if you do good work and you have a good product, it'll catch on.
Yeah, for sure.
And even if only a handful of people see it, so what?
Everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah, and it's good that people see it. I mean, when I was doing the tour for this book, I was lucky to do a lot of CNN, and they release you from your contract. CNN's contract does not let you do MSNBC or Fox because that's the deal. But they let you do it for a couple weeks, so I did MSNBC. I didn't do Fox. They didn't invite me. I would have done it. But I did big outlets, Sirius XM, NPR, that kind of stuff I do fairly frequently. But I did a lot of smaller outlets. I did small public radio shops, people with independent podcasts, book-focused podcasts, and maybe they don't have, tens of thousands of viewers, but I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
I like talking about this stuff, and it still connects with people. So.
For the second book, we'll try and get one of those.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And this is the final question.
Yeah.
What is a dope concept, event, or platform you think needs more attention? It could be yourself, a book, an organization, or a cause, or a message.
I like that. So a good concept. I like when people create their own materials and do it again, not to overly flatter you guys, but and do it in a professional way.
Yeah.
I just think it's great to see young people. You know, there's podcasts everywhere now in places I didn't even expect. Like the high school here has a podcast.
Oh, really? Wow.
My old summer camp has a podcast. I did a guest spot for them a month or two ago.
Wow.
And so I think entrepreneurial podcasting with a thought and a purpose behind it. I think too many people think it's easier than it is. Too many people think, what, you get a microphone and you just talk about your thoughts. Like, that's going to be boring. That's going to suck.
Yeah.
But if you work at it, if you put in the research and the writing, whatever production you can do, then I think there's a lot of promise there. Podcasts you can grow from there. You can get noticed from there. You can just put your thoughts out there. So I think the podcasts I named for you are not necessarily big name podcasts.
Yeah, yeah. We'll definitely
The one about the songs in the 90s. Well, Preet's big, you know, but the one about the 60 songs in the 90s. I mean, that guy is just a critic who does great work and has put together this awesome product. That I
Found
think is
his
really
niche.
interesting. So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
And that's it. What we think is dope. Elie Honig, thank you so much.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Shortly after, we decided to ask Elie about his Sixers Mount Rushmore.
Sixers Mount Rushmore for me is Charles,
Yeah.
Iverson, Embiid. I was a little late for Doc. I missed Dr. J. He was like at the very, very end of his career by the time I started paying attention. Who's the
My
fourth?
dad saw Dr. J and Larry Bird play in the playoffs the year they won the
Oh
chip.
my gosh, 83.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's awesome. Who would be the fourth? See, now I'm doing Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Barkley.
I feel like you got to throw Dr. J just out of respect.
Well, out of respect. Yeah, okay. I was thinking Moses.
Yeah, I was going to say
also.
Moses too. Yeah,
Yeah, Moses did lead us to the promised land. So